The moment I opened my eyes that morning, I felt something was off. The air was cold, not just physically, but emotionally, like the stillness before a disaster. I reached up, scratching my scalp. And then I froze. There was no hair. Just patches, uneven, jagged, bare. My fingers slid across the raw, exposed skin of my scalp where hair had once been. A scream tore from my throat before I could process it. And within seconds, the door flung open. My sister Jade stood there, holding the electric razor like a trophy, her manicured nails wrapped around it like it was a crown jewel. "Oh, good," she grinned. "You're awake. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video." I sat up slowly, a trembling hand covering my head. "What? What did you do?" "Fixed you," she said simply. "Now the outside finally matches what you are on the inside." Before I could respond, my mom's voice echoed down the hallway, smug and venomous. "Jade, show her the mirror. She needs to see how truth looks." Jade strolled over, holding out her phone, screen flipped to selfie mode. I looked and gasped. Huge chunks of my thick, black hair were gone one side of my head, nearly bald, the other uneven and choppy like a child had hacked at it. My forehead had a faint smudge of marker across it, where Jade had written the word useless before smearing it in laughter. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I wouldn't, not in front of her. "What is wrong with you?" I whispered. Jade rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic. It's just hair. Honestly, you should be thanking me. Now you finally look like what you are, a joke." That's when my mother walked into the room, sipping her morning tea. She looked at me, paused, and smiled cruelly. "Well," she said, placing her cup down, "maybe now the neighbors will stop asking why you still live in our house. No ambition, no job, no prospects. At least now your hair won't lie about who you are." Jade snorted with laughter. I sat there frozen, humiliated, raw, exposed in every way, but they didn't stop. "Oh, and I threw away your little job interview dress," Jade added. "Didn't want you showing up pretending to be someone you're not." I couldn't breathe. That dress was all I had prepared for a potential receptionist job I was going to walk to that day. It wasn't much, but it was something. "You're disgusting," I choked out. My mom leaned down, lips curled with mock pity. "Don't be so sensitive, Mallory. Some girls are meant to shine, some are meant to sit quietly and clap." I got out of bed, pushing past them both. My legs trembled as I made it to the bathroom. I locked the door and collapsed onto the tile floor. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the girl in the mirror, the girl they had butchered and laughed at. And then something changed. A switch flipped. I didn't cry. I didn't scream again. I stood up. I turned on the sink, washed the word off my forehead, and stared at myself until the hatred in their voices faded from memory. They thought they broke me. They thought cutting my hair would erase my identity. But in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Clarity. And it wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming the person they spent years tearing down, year after year, insult after insult. I wrapped a scarf around my head, not to hide but to hold in what little warmth I had left. That day, I didn't go to the interview. I walked into a salon and asked them to shave it all off clean. The stylist paused. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I whispered. "Make it neat, but leave a streak something bold." It was the first decision I'd made that my mother and sister didn't control. And it felt powerful. When I walked out of that salon, people stared. I didn't care. Because I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't begging to be loved by people who only saw me as a punching bag. I walked to a library next, printed 3 resumes, borrowed a laptop, and started applying to jobs they didn't think I'd ever qualify for. That night, I didn't go home. I slept in a shelter 3 towns away, silent, small, scared, but free. And while my sister posted selfies mocking me, and my mother spread whispers to neighbors about how I'd lost my mind, I was building something. something they would never see coming. And when it came, it would be louder than any of their cruel laughter. The first few weeks were rough. The shelter didn't ask questions, just handed me a thin blanket and a rollaway cot in the back room. The women there were quiet, tired, kind in the way people are when they've seen too much and still offer you a piece of their bread. I didn't speak much. I kept my head low, hoodie up, and my resume in a manila folder that I carried like it was worth more than gold. Every day I walked, library, cafe, grocery stores. I applied everywhere. Most turned me down without even a second glance. I didn't look right to them with my shaved head and thrift store shoes. Until I met Claire. She owned a second-hand bookstore tucked into a corner near the old train station. I was applying for a cashier job, fumbling my words when she looked up from her desk and tilted her head. "You read?" I blinked. Yeah, a lot. "What's your favorite?" I paused. "Toni Morrison, The Bluest Eye." She smiled. "Mine too." That was it. She hired me that afternoon. The pay was low, but the shop was warm. Claire didn't ask about the hair or why my voice trembled when someone raised theirs nearby. She just handed me the keys when she left each evening and said, "Lock up after the last customer and leave the lights low, makes the pages glow." Those little words were more kindness than I'd heard in years. I used my first paycheck to buy a cheap phone. I didn't tell my mother or sister, but I did check their social media. And what I saw made me clench my jaw. Jade was going viral not for modeling or anything noble, but for mocking me. She posted TikToks reenacting the haircut night with captions like, "When your sister's life is already trash, so you just take out the garbage." One video had over 200K views. Strangers laughed in the comments. "She deserved it. Who even sleeps that deep? Girl just gave her a free glow down." "And my mom?" she commented under it. "Finally she did something useful. That haircut saved us money." My hands shook, but I didn't post back. I didn't reply. I didn't call. I printed every comment, every screenshot, and kept them. Because I had a new plan now. Claire, noticing I was good with organizing things, let me start managing the store inventory. Then one day, a customer came in, a guest speaker from the nearby community college. He asked if I'd ever considered public speaking. I laughed bitterly. "Me? They used to tell me I sounded like a broken radio." He just smiled. "Good. Radios carry truth." 1 month later, I stood in front of a small group of adult learners, mostly women, sharing my story under a new name, not revealing the full details. But the room was silent. They listened, and one woman cried. After the session, a woman named Deborah came up to me. "You don't know what you just did," she said, her voice thick. "You gave my daughter a reason to stay." I swallowed hard. That night, I stood in front of the bookstore mirror and stared at myself. Still bald, still broke. But now I saw fire in my eyes. I had value. So I kept going. More talks, more sessions, a local podcast interview. I even got invited to a panel on emotional abuse survivors. I almost didn't go until I saw the guest list. My sister was listed as a family empowerment coach for a new wellness brand trying to market its beauty line. I nearly laughed. It was all fake. She'd stolen my story, my look, the aesthetic of cut hair and confidence. But she didn't know one thing. I'd been documenting everything. And I was no longer afraid of standing in the light. I didn't want revenge that went viral. I wanted revenge that made them look at themselves and choke. And I finally had the stage to do it. The conference hall buzzed with forced laughter, synthetic compliments, and the smell of luxury skincare. Booths were lined with glowing photos of empowered women, all airbrushed into the same cold, perfect image. But I didn't walk in wearing that. I wore my truth. No wig, just my regrown, choppy hair slicked back. No glam makeup, just light concealer under the eyes and a calmness I hadn't owned before. When I stepped onto the stage, I could feel it, that breathless hush. I was slotted just before the final inspirational speaker, my sister Jade. I stood at the podium. The lights were warm on my face. and the crowd expected a soft, motivational talk, a story about surviving hardship with grace. But grace was never what saved me. I used to be told I looked like trash, I began. My family made me kneel on the floor and scrub their shoes with my own shirt. They said it made me finally look like what I was. A few people shifted in their seats. I scanned the front row. There she was, Jade, wearing white, seated next to a cosmetics CEO, trying to hold her smirk. But I saw the corner of her eye twitch, saw her recognize the story. She hadn't expected me. I continued. I was told I had no worth, no value, that I was a leech because I couldn't afford what they had. My mother laughed while my sister cut off my hair as I slept, and screamed useless into my ear as the blade nicked skin. Gasps. The host stepped halfway out of her chair. I held up the screenshots printed large behind me on the projector. The TikToks, the comments, my mother's reply. Oh, and this, I said, tapping the screen. This is the same woman who now claims to be a family empowerment expert. She's here today. Her name is Jade. Maybe she'd like to explain how abuse becomes marketable when the victim finally disappears. A woman in the crowd stood up, the podcast host who had invited me. Her voice was cold. Is this true? Jade stood slowly, her face drained of all color. That was years ago. She's just bitter. You don't know what she was like back then. No, I interrupted. But I know what you were like, because I lived it. I scrubbed your floor while you filmed yourself. I starved while you ordered steak for your dog. The audience murmured now not polite interest, disgust, awareness. I looked at the organizer. You invited me to speak about healing, but healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means naming it, owning it, and letting the ones who hurt you watch you walk out without looking back. I paused. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I stepped off the stage. Security ushered Jade out through a side exit, not arrested, not punished legally, but ruined in the one place she cared about, her curated social persona, her brand, her spotlight. It flickered out that day. Her sponsor dropped her, her coaching business collapsed, and the comments turned. Why didn't we know? That wasn't empowerment, that was performance. You humiliated your sister and called it healing? She tried to claw back her image, new videos, fake apologies, but they didn't stick. Because I never responded. I didn't need to. I had already opened my own space, a quiet reading room where survivors of abuse could come in, drink tea, and exist without shame. I called it Chapter 1. And on the wall hung a framed photo. Me that night on the stage, mid-sentence, unapologetic, unbroken. I never took it down. And every time a girl walks in with tears in her eyes and jagged hair under a hood, I say, you're not trash. You're just the part of the story they didn't want written. And I mean it. Because I lived it. And I turned their pride into dust, one truth at a time. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.